Thanks everyone. I'm Dr. Lana St and today I'm going to talk to you about my research which is concerning the impact of climate change on the Welsh language, culture and heritage. So before I start, I just want you to think about the youngest person that you know. It could be a niece, it could be a brother, it could be a child, it could be a grandchild. When I think about this, I think of my daughter and my soon-to-be other future generation, not sure what it is yet. Lily, my daughter, loves the outdoors. She loves nature. She actually loves speaking Welsh. She goes to Welsh school. So this is the youngest person, well, apart from this one and some younger ones now, that I think of when I think of a young person. So the reason why I do this work, and a lot of people ask me why, what was my motivation, is for me to ensure or me to support and to help the future generations to be able to touch, to feel, to experience, to listen to taste, to smell what we can today in the future. So just to put a worldwide context on it to begin with, today in the world, or sort of depends on where you look at and who you look at, there are between 6,000 and 7,000 languages across the whole world. Here's a map demonstrating the living languages, and some of these languages only have less than 1,000 speakers left in their generation. So some of them will be dying out, and the statistics say that a language dies every 2 to 3 weeks across the whole world. Obviously, we're not in that position in Wales. We're really fortunate to have some leading legislation which legislates for the Welsh language, but there are other countries that are not so fortunate. The reason I put this up is because when a language dies, a whole world dies with it. An example of a recent disaster because of climate change is the Hawaiian wildfires of last summer, where that significantly impacted some of the cultural festivals that were happening in the area. Also burned a banyan tree, which is significant to the Hawaiian culture, and also disrupted one of the cultural festivals happening at the time as well. We're not going to lose Wales as such to the sea or to rivers, but there are other places across the world where this is significant. And actually, in Wales, we are future thinking and we are legislating for our future generations, which is something that other places around the world have been looking to. So the work that I've been doing has been working collaboratively, thanks to a Get Started fund from RIS, with the Future Generation Commissioner's Office, which has looked at not only understanding how we can make sure that Welsh is embedded and Welsh culture is embedded in what we do, but how we can embed it in all of the 7 wellbeing goals and how we can research using the 5 working ways as well. So it's fully embracing the Future Generation Act and its principles. The research has taken a 2-part idea. So the first part involved conversations with 40 individuals about their perception of what climate change might look like and what Wales might look like in the future. So just take a second to think, okay, have I ever considered what impact climate change? What if we lost an area or we had an area flooded? What impact would that have to the local community, to the language used within that community, our cultural and heritage assets? So that's what I've been going out and talking to people about that. The second part, which is relatively new in terms of the thinking around culture and climate change, is thinking about mapping this for the future. So this is our current risk mapping in Wales. So this is maps taken from Data Maps Wales and the resources inputted by Natural Resources Wales. I imported that into a system called QGIS. Disclaimer, I'm not a geographer or a scientist. I'm a social scientist, linguist in trade. And so what we can imagine here is all of these areas that are highlighted using the red are areas which are at risk of flooding. So in making sure I get my numbers right, I've written on the back of my awfully drawn picture, sorry. So it's relatively complex, which is the reason why I haven't put the mapping dots on here, because it takes a lot of time to kind of explain what they mean. But if you can imagine in this side here, that was sea risk area. So our listed buildings in this area, there are currently 3,613 out of 30,000 listed buildings, in our river risk area here. So those are currently at risk. This is not considering the future risk. I'm in the process of doing that at the moment. 22 of our Welsh medium schools are situated within a river risk area. If we look over here to the sea risk, there's 1,242 out of our 30,000 listed buildings in a sea risk area, and there's 9 of our Welsh medium specific schools here. Through doing the research, I understood a lot more about the disruption of flooding, which I was really surprised at, how kind of the aftermath of a flood is. And so that really surprised me, and actually the disruption to that, could that then cause disruption to our Welsh medium schooling? Okay, COVID had a relatively kind of good idea in terms of actually if our Welsh speakers and our Welsh pupils, Welsh medium speaking pupils go home, what do they have to continue their Welsh immersed education? There's currently no one place for us to be able to map cultural assets. So our art galleries, our museums, and the places that we undertake cultural activities into a map like this. So that's something that I'm hoping to do in the future, and anyone who's able to help would be great. In Wales, we have come across several different ideas and sort of examples of our cultural assets being devastated by storms and because of the increase of storms because of climate change. So for example, here, Clwb y Bont, okay, this is a Welsh medium community club, all right, where there's a lot of Welsh medium activities that happen here as well. There's the example here. So in my research, a lot of people spoke about whether we would lose stories and folklore and mythology to climate change. So this is kind of a little bit of a look back to some mythology. And this is Cantra Gwaelod, which is a sunken village, sunken area in Welsh mythology. So I thought that was quite poignant to put up here. In amongst the 40 voices that spoke, they obviously had a lot to say, but this is one that really sung a tune, and particularly in terms of when speaking to policymakers and people who want to learn more about this particular area, it was the stewardship of the communities that were particularly important. Hearing voices of local people, understanding how culture can help towards us understanding more about climate change and understanding it in an accessible way is a really, really important way for us to be able to communicate and also to make sure that we can plan and adapt in ways that work well for the community. So reality y peth yw y lleisiau dyn ni ddim yn glywed yw'r lleisiau dyn ni angen clywed. So the voices that we don't hear are the ones that we need to hear. And a lot of this was around actually lots of people within the community know a lot about particular areas or their communities themselves. The policymakers won't necessarily know about. So it's about understanding that. These are just some photos that, over the duration of my research that I took, I didn't take this when my husband did. I was sat down, not on a walk during that one. But this was quite interesting because a lot of people, we spoke a lot about what the impact was and what the impact could be. And a lot of times I also spoke to my participants about how can we preserve our assets now. And I thought this was a really interesting one. And this is urging people to take a photo through the photo frame of the aqueduct, or the viaduct. Okay, this is up in Wrexham. Take a photo through the photo frame and then to put a photo up on social media, highlighting the date, the time, the location, but also they can put a story to it. We're great storytellers in Wales, okay? Put a story to it, and then that is preserved and that is protected for the future generations as well. Gardd y Peillwyr, so the pollinators garden, okay, actually making sure that our young people understand how to work with nature and how we can do this in an accessible way. This is actually in a brand new Urdd Pentre Ifan. It's Urdd Gogledd Cymru have opened a brand new area that young people can connect with nature. And that's it. Thank you. Diolch.